The zip tie bites. Plastic shivers against skin as it ratchets, slick with sweat and Georgia humidity. Dr. Maya Ellis's wrists lock behind a black flaking iron fence beneath the John Lewis Bridge. The mural above her, John Lewis mid-stride, a river of marchers behind him, watches with paint that looks like it can't blink. Look alive. Danner, Officer Brady Cole says, breath hot with coffee and confidence. He angles Maya's face toward his body cam, like an exhibitor angling a product under a better light. Suspicious person casing vehicles. Bags, tools, you know the type. Maya's leather portfolio lies gutted at the curb, papers fanned across heat-softened asphalt. Draft consent decree language thumps against a passing breeze. Use of force continuum, stop documentation, data transparency. Her father's fountain pen was heavy and navy, engraved with a simple Ellis, skitters, catches in a crack. Above them, cars thrum on the overpass like a metronome for impatience. I asked one question, Maya says, voice level, chin lifted. What statute authorizes you to detain me? Cole smiles at the growing ring of phones. That one. He taps his badge with 2 fingers. Statute? I said so. Someone snorts. Someone else says, get her name. A teenager in a camo bucket hat trains his camera harder and closer. A woman with a stroller veers, stops, and doesn't move. Heat presses down from the bridge deck, radiating the day's first harshness. Cole fishes Maya's phone from the curb with 2 fingers like it's contaminated. He holds it up to the phone. We're going to document, he says. Documentation is accountability. He leans until his sunglasses reflect Maya's face. Ma'am, do not escalate this. Maya's heartbeat keeps pace with the thrum of tires above. The Fourth Amendment doesn't escalate, she says. It limits you. She tries to wet her lips. They're already wet with heat. Reasonable suspicion is specific, articulable facts. Not hunches, not categories, not complaints about my existence. Danner, Cole says without looking away. Smell anything? He lets the question hang like a trap. No, Officer Rick Danner says, unhappy and quiet. Thought so. Cole turns to the crowd. Probable cause, he says, as if the words themselves were a badge. He's playing for the phones. He's also playing for the silence between one heartbeat and the next, the longest part of any day. A distant ringtone chirps from Maya's phone, face down on the asphalt. It buzzes against grit, the sound intimate and absurd. Phones tilt like flowers find light. Cole presses his boot next to it without touching. The caller ID glows white through a hairline crack, U.S. Department of Justice. Cole laughs, big and public. Cute, he says. Scammers got themselves an office number. Answer it, Maya says. Put it on speaker. Cole turns his head toward the mural, toward John Lewis's still painted eyes. He grins for the cameras. We do this live, he says, and with an exaggerated little flourish, he taps, Answer. The voice is crisp. This is the Attorney General. To whom am I speaking? All the phones rise at once higher. We freeze in heat and shade, breath and eyes, zip tie and paint. Maya's wrists ache. Cole isn't blinking. The bridge hums. The whole city inhales and holds. Dawn slides pink along the brick of Old Fourth Ward as Maya's kettle clicks to silence. She pours water in a tight spiral over the grounds and watches the blooms turn to ripples. NPR murmurs low. Headlines about a heat advisory, a mayoral presser, a confirmation vote. The apartment smells like coffee and lemon oil. She keeps the space orderly, not sterile, never that, just intentional. Her father taught her that the mind follows the room. On the table, her leather portfolio, edges burnished by years of hands. Printed slides about pattern or practice investigations. A grace note of a yellow sticky, call Aunt Ruth. The fountain pen sits atop the portfolio, heavy enough to have opinions. Her phone pings with messages, stacked like a rising choir. 7:05 a.m. Aunt Ruth, you make your grandfather proud today. He always said your questions would fix something. Eat. You forget to eat when you're nervous. 7:06 a.m. Devon, chief investigator. Fed courthouse at 9. Deputy mayor at 10:15. Press locked to embargo. Wear the slate suit. Cameras love the slate suit. 7:08 a.m. Unknown, HRDOJ. Congratulations again? U.S. Attorney Ellis. Formal announcement drops at 10:30. We'll send talking points. Maya stares at that last line. The room is quiet enough to hear the refrigerator hum, U.S. Attorney Ellis. It still sounds like someone else's doorplate. Her wall clock ticks. She pours a second cup because she'll forget later when the heat turns the day into a straight line. She calls her mother. "Baby," Lila Ellis says, breathy with joy and the tangle of pride and worry. "How's my federal prosecutor before she's even had breakfast?" "Still your daughter," Maya says, smiling into the empty room. "Still the one who forgets to eat. You take the bus like a normal person today." No, I can drive you. I'll walk to Edgewood," Maya says. She pulls on the slate suit jacket, which reads as serious but not remote. "Meet Devin, I need air." "Air we have," Lila says. "Shade you won't. Text me when you get there." Maya pockets the fountain pen and slides the portfolio into her tote. She pauses at the door and looks at the photo above the shoe rack. Her father at the March on Washington, squared shoulders, crooked tie, joy in his eyes so big it looks like pain. "Hey, Daddy," she says, because sometimes the habit is a prayer. Watch me ask better questions. Outside, the city is already sweating. The John Lewis Bridge throws a shade triangle over a small square of sidewalk that looks like mercy. A jogger passes. A man unlocks a bike. A woman with a toddler murmurs the alphabet in Spanish. Two older men play dominoes on a folding table on a stoop and nod at Maya like they've been nodding at her all her life. She nods back because she has. She takes the long way to Edgewood, past the mural, past the memorial plaques. The present continuously learns its lines by watching the past. At the crosswalk, a bus breaks in a wheeze, and in its back window she can make out her own reflection, small and determined and a little surprised. The light changes. She steps off the curb into a day she cannot predict. Officer Brady Cole sees her before she notices him. His patrol SUV idles beside a fire hydrant. AC roars out the open window like a storm that doesn't believe in seasons. He's in his mid-40s, the kind of fit that reads as competence if you don't look long. The kind of smirk that reads as humor if you don't hear it twice. Next to him, Officer Rick Danner scrolls dispatch on a tablet and wishes the shift would be all paperwork and shade. Cole watches Maya read a text while walking. Portfolio. Slate suit. Hair at the nape of her neck like a no-nonsense decision. "Check it out," he says. "Every scammer's favorite accessory, a briefcase." Danner doesn't look up. "There's an auto break-in on Auburn 2 blocks over. And there's a suspicious walk and look right here," Cole says, already reversing. "You gotta develop the eye, Danner. You see details. Shoes too clean for this block. That lawyer bag, scouting. It's 9 in the morning, Danner says. She's walking. Terry says I can ask questions, Cole says. The Supreme Court says it. The Supreme Court also says... Danner stops. Because Cole is already out of the car, the door left open like an unfinished thought. "Ma'am," Cole says, stepping into Maya's path, hands out not to welcome but to occupy space. His smile is shaped like a test. "Morning. What brings you under our bridge?" Maya draws up. She's learned, across a career, that her face is often a mirror people use to fix their hair. She keeps her expression calm and polite. "Good morning, officer. I'm heading to a meeting." "What kind of meeting?" "A professional one." She glances at her watch, not because she's impatient, but because people understand watches. They're universal. "I'm on the schedule. ID," Cole says, voice louder for anyone within microphone range. Before we go further, Maya shifts her tote to reach. "Absolutely. And before we go further, can you tell me the basis for the stop?" Cole taps his notepad, empty but for the word susp. "Suspicious behavior. We've had break-ins. You look around. You got a bag. You're..." He stops on the word. He doesn't say it. He lets the pause say it. Maya meets his eyes. The pause lands between them like a dropped glass that improbably does not break. "Walking with a bag," she says evenly. "Public sidewalk. No furtive actions. No reported incident involving me. No specific articulable facts that I'm committing a crime." "Look," Cole says, "this is not a debate club. You can cooperate or you can obstruct." "Good morning," Danner says, stepping close enough to be human. "Ma'am, we're just trying to keep the area safe. There have been theft from autos." And there's a man right now breaking into a car 2 blocks away, Maya says. Her phone vibrates with a text. Devin, I'm in the courthouse lobby. Coffee's terrible. Where are you? But she leaves it where it is. Reasonable suspicion is specific. The Fourth Amendment is not a suggestion. Cole's jaw works. Let me see that bag, he says. No, Maya says. Not without probable cause or my consent. You have neither. The pause breaks. Cole steps into her space, not touching but shading her like a cloud with an agenda. Hands on the fence, he says, voice smooth and bright and pitched to carry. Don't make me ask. Phones rise because phones do. A man in a Braves cap says, Just show him, lady. A high school senior with a cracked iPhone whispers, She knows her rights. Maya places the portfolio down, deliberately, as if setting a glass on a table. She breathes. Officer, she says, keeping her eyes on Cole's sunglasses where her face wavers and doubles. Name your suspicion. Name the statute. Cole gestures to Danner without looking. Cuff her, he says. Resisting, Danner hesitates. For not consenting to a search? That's not... Hands, Cole says louder as if volume can fill a case file. And Maya, because she has learned that dignity includes choosing when to fight and when to survive to fight again, turns and places her palms on peeling paint. The iron fence burns her skin with stored heat. Somewhere close, a train whistles, 2 notes that feel like an unfinished thought. Sirens climb the ramp like someone raising a curtain. The chief's SUV skids to a stop in a way that promises a meeting about driving later. Chief Alana Rhodes, compact, gray-haired, eyes that have no time for theater, steps out and takes in a scene that is all theater anyway. A crowd, a mural, an attorney rubbing red wrists, a portfolio bleeding paper into the heat. Officer Cole, she says, hat tucked under her arm, voice flat enough to iron a shirt. Step back from Dr. Ellis. Chief, Cole says brightly, we had a suspicious... You had a violation, Rhodes says. Multiple. Badges on the curb. Danner's badge is off his shirt, where it wanted to be anyway. Cole's hands hover at his chest like they forgot the choreography. He unpins slowly, as if the metal might scream. Maya inhales and feels the pain in her wrists as a bell note rings true. She lifts the portfolio back to the curb and stacks papers with fingers that still shake. The fountain pen is warm from the asphalt. She picks it up like a talisman. She looks at Chief Rhodes. We should talk later, she says. If you want to get ahead of this. Rhodes nods once, gratitude under discipline. We are already behind, she says. But yes. The Attorney General is still on speaker on the asphalt. Dr. Ellis, the voice says, almost human now, the steel braided with care. Are you physically all right? I am, Maya says. Others won't be on days I'm not beneath a mural with cameras. Rhodes flinches, almost invisible, like someone hit a tuning fork just below hearing. Internal Affairs is on the way, she says, then corrects herself. No, you won't investigate yourselves. We're requesting DOJ civil rights. Effective now, Cole swallows. The swallow is a whole paragraph. He looks at the phones, the mural, the Attorney General's disembodied presence. He looks like a man who just discovered gravity late in life. Cole zip ties like he's tying off a balloon at a birthday party. Brisk, practiced, almost cheerful. He narrates for the body cam. Subject is combative. He lies without heat, like he's reading the weather. Refuses ID, refuses to answer questions, matches description of suspect in area thefts. Description? Maya says over her shoulder. What description? Female, Cole says. Bag. Color, someone says from the edge of the crowd, a question that sounds like a dare. And someone else says, Don't start. Cole tips Maya's tote and portfolio onto the asphalt. Papers flutter. A glossy packet lands open at his feet. Draft consent decree, Atlanta Police Department, DOJ Civil Rights Division. He reads the header like a person sounding out a foreign alphabet. Look at that, he says. Fake government papers, cute. Those are real, Maya says, level, wrists tight, breath measured. She can feel the pulse in her thumb. Everything's real if you print it bold, Cole says for the phones. Danner, get a shot of this. We got a sovereign citizen lawyer type. Danner shifts, unhappy. The phones catch it. Maya's phone begins to ring. A soft insistence, the default chime for a call you don't think will change your life. It buzzes next to her father's pen. On the cracked screen, Devon. The call drops. A text arrives. AG's office wants to chat before presser, and then a second later, the phone lights again. The caller ID is different now. It is not a number that normal days deploy, U.S. Department of Justice. Cole's eyebrows leap. He smiles widely as if he were a magician about to pick a planted card. "This one's my favorite gag," he says to the crowd, and they reward him with a small ripple of complicity because people like performers. "Watch this." He taps the answer. "Atlanta Police Department," he says, voice bent toward amused. Officer Cole speaking. "Who is detaining Dr. Maya Ellis?" The voice is clean, steel, wrapped in velvet, gendered, but more importantly, official. "This is the Attorney General of the United States." A sine wave passes through the little crowd, an invisible movement like wind deciding to exist. Someone lowers their phone and then raises it higher. Above them, a truck passes over the bridge, casting a slow-moving shadow that drifts like doubt. Cole laughs because he has nowhere else to stand. "Good morning to you, too," he says, letting the sunglasses make eye contact. "We got ourselves a person of interest. Officer Cole," the Attorney General says, the name precise like a chisel. "Dr. Ellis is the newly confirmed United States Attorney for the Northern District of Georgia. You will release her immediately." Danner's head snaps toward Cole like a compass needle finally allowed to point. Maya closes her eyes for exactly one breath and opens them on purpose. Cole absorbs the words like someone learning languages late. "Cute," he says, but his mouth is dry. "Scammers get bolder every year." "Body cams are on," the Attorney General says. "This line is recorded. Your chief is on his way. This call will be part of the record." Phones shift. The mural's eyes do not blink, but it would be nice if the paint could lean in. Cole slices the zip tie with a practiced flick because even a showman knows when the audience has turned. The plastic drops like a shed skin. Maya slowly brings her arms forward, rubbing her wrists branded red by the heat and plastic. She turns and faces Cole, the phones, the bridge, the day. "Officer," she says softly so every microphone strains to catch it. "Badges don't print new rights. They protect existing ones, or they answer for it. 6 months smudge into the kind of change that looks like paperwork if you squint and looks like dignity if you don't." The public stop dashboard goes live. Local reporters click through maps, filters, and weekly summaries. A high school civics class adopts it like a pet project, emailing the oversight board when a data update is late. Officers sit in a training room with 2 bright lights and listen to Miss Esparza from Boulevard tell a story about her son and a backpack. "Write what you see," she tells them. "Not who you think he is." Body cam activation jumps from 78% to 99%. The missing 1% becomes a problem so loud it's a song. The discipline ladder posts on the break room wall, 3 missed activations in a quarter, and you desk ride. 4, and you desk ride somewhere else. The policies outlast personalities. Complaints trend down by visible increments. The Oversight Board posts quarterly reports with graphs that are not pretty, not ugly, just honest. Chief Rhodes installs a practice where every stop form is randomly audited by a lieutenant who has to sign their name to a sentence that says, "I read this. I accept responsibility for it." Maya sits at a long table where a city's worth of people explain to each other what a city is supposed to be. She writes less now and listens more. Power changes verbs. Devon slides a memo across and clears his throat. "Video from last week," he says. On the screen, Danner, now reassigned to community liaison, is explaining stop documentation to a classroom of recruits. He looks like a man trying to be a better verb. Under the bridge, someone has changed the mural in a small way. It isn't graffiti. It's permissioned art, a ribbon added to the painted marchers. The ribbon bears a line in block letters. Good trouble is documented. The artist posts the time-lapse. The comment section is a war and a homecoming. Maya walks that route now and then. People nod like they always did, and now some say, "Congrats, and we saw you in the paper," and one man says, "I tell my niece to say, 'Name the statute' when she's nervous." And Maya says, Tell her to say it calmly, and tell her to call us if they don't answer. She still carries the fountain pen, even though most of her work is digital. Some objects are not tools but vows. At night, she sets it beside the portfolio and thinks of her father tapping the pen against a table when she was little, saying, "It's not the ink that matters. It's the record. The record is different now. It is public. It is watched. The city remains itself, messy, hungry, a song you can't sing if you move away. But the sidewalk under the bridge feels subtly remapped, like the day the city decided to honor the distance between a person and a curb." One humid evening, she meets Chief Rhodes in that same shade triangle. "I hate that it took a spectacle," Rhodes says. "Spectacles are bad teachers," Maya says. "But they're good alarms." Rhodes nods toward the mural. "We're putting the stop forms into the academy entrance exam," she says. "You can't wear a badge if you can't write your suspicion without adjectives." They stand in the heat that doesn't move, listening to the endless traffic, the city's heartbeat under the bridge. A teenager on a bike rolls past, slows, and says, "Hey, that's the lady who said the rights don't wait." It's not exactly what she said. "It's close enough," Maya smiles at him. "They don't," she says. "And neither do you." He pops his front tire, laughs, and is gone. After dark, her mother texts a photo, the wall in the living room with a new frame. A copy of the consent decree language, the section on documentation, was printed and hung between the family portrait and the church fan. "This is our house now, too," Lila writes. Maya thumbs the glass over the image of the law in a frame, like a relic or a recipe card. She replies, "Ours always." Later in bed, she thinks of the line that found her under the bridge. "Badges don't print new rights." It's not a slogan. It's an instruction. Slogans are short-term memory. Instructions are to be carried out. The heat finally eases after midnight. The city exhales out of habit. Before sleep, she sets her alarm and her pen. She's learned that tomorrow is always more paperwork than you imagined, and that sometimes paperwork is a synonym for promise. If stories like this remind you that law is a living promise, share it. If you learned a phrase you'll carry, name the statute, comment with it. And if your city hasn't made stop documentation public, ask for it. Good trouble is documented, so is progress. A montage, but ledgers and law make it human. Devin sets down a box on a conference table and then another, cardboard sighing at the seams. "Complaints," he says, ticking them with a pen. "Unlawful stops. Unlogged detentions. Patterns by zip code you can see without your glasses." Maya circles sections on the whiteboard. Paragraph 242. Deprivation of rights under color of law. 42 U.S.C. Paragraph 1983. Civil action for deprivation. 34 U.S.C. Paragraph 2601. Pattern or practice. She writes like someone mapping a river, tributaries feeding a thing. A current that looks like it has always moved this way and must be redirected, not dammed. Chief Rhodes sits across from her, tie loosened. Contrition not as performance, but as a decision. "We adjusted policy after last year," Rhodes says. "But paper is a floor, not a ceiling. Paper is stairs," Maya says. "We climb." They list reforms and then attach dates. Not because calendars are magic, but because time is the only honest auditor. Document every stop, including race, ethnicity data, reason, and outcome. Public dashboard updated weekly. Body cam activation discipline. No video, no report. Escalating penalties up to termination. Bias and civil rights training led by the community. Not a slideshow, not a box to check, but a contract. Independent oversight board with subpoena power, community seats, and budget independence. Stop and identify policy rewrite, remove furtive movements and other catch-all nonsense. Insert specific articulable thresholds, consent decree conditions, Devin says, tapping the draft. "We're not asking. We're offering a way to say yes." The investigation expands like a lens widening. Prior stop surface, a 62-year-old saxophonist cuffed while carrying his instrument, a nurse leaving night shift forced against a hood because her scrubs had bulky pockets. Danner's body cam catches him saying, "We don't have enough to stop him," and Cole replying, "We'll make enough." That line, Maya says, underlining it until the paper looks like it will bruise. That line goes in every brief. Cole sits in an interview room with a lawyer who looks like he invoices in 6-minute increments. He stares at his hands while a monitor plays clips. His smirk. Maya's wrists. John Lewis's painted eyes. It wasn't about race, he says, and the lawyer's eyes do not move, but they say, quietly, stop. Pattern, Maya writes on a legal pad, because pattern is the difference between accident and design. Danner testifies with his shoulders folded like someone trying to shrink to the original packaging. I should have stopped it, he says, voice thin. I knew. He looks up at Maya. I'm sorry, he says. And the apology lands, not because it fixes anything, but because it admits something that must be documented to be repaired. G. Courtroom catharsis. The federal court is colder than the city deserves. The HVAC vent hum is a second soundtrack under the clerk's crisp announcements. The seal behind the judge looks like a stern cousin. People sit forward in benches built before ergonomics. Phones off, breath on. United States versus Brady Cole opens with a story everyone has already seen and needs to hear told like law. Assistant U.S. Attorney Jelani Carter stands and walks the jury through pieces that, alone, could be dismissed as incidents, and together become a mosaic you cannot unsee. The Constitution has no zip code, Carter says in his opening. It does not cool in summer or crack in winter. It sits at your elbow when you have a badge. It sits at your elbow when you don't. He calls witnesses, the saxophonist, the nurse, the teenager with the cracked iPhone, Chief Rhodes, who answers yes to questions that make the department wince, Danner, who swallows and says, I knew again, this time under oath. Cole's defense leans on fear because fear is a furniture that fits everywhere. High crime area, counsel says. Officer safety. Split-second decisions. Maya takes the stand not as a victim, but as a teacher, because she knows that teaching is how you build a record in a courtroom. One sentence at a time, designed to withstand wind. She speaks evenly. Reasonable suspicion, she says, is not a vibe. It's facts. Probable cause is not a mood. It's evidence. Safety is not a spell that ends a conversation. Dr. Ellis, Carter says, what rights were implicated in your detention? The Fourth Amendment's protection against unreasonable searches and seizures, Maya replies. The 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause, given the pattern of disparate stops. Federal statutes, paragraph 242 and paragraph 1983, codify our ability to redress these violations. Also, Atlanta's own stop documentation policy, which wasn't followed. On cross, defense counsel tries to fit her into a box labeled political. You had a policy agenda, didn't you? I had a constitutional agenda, Maya says. Law is not partisan. It is binding. The judge sustains an objection. The jury watches. Juries always watch the moments that slide sideways and reveal character. Expert witness Dr. Amaya Soto, a criminologist, supplies something jurors can hold. When you remove vague categories like furtive movement from a stop policy and require officers to write specific facts in plain language, she says, disparities drop. Not because people change hearts overnight, but because documentation forces accountability and accountability changes behavior. Defense plays. Cole's body cam clips that show him making polite traffic stops with white drivers and wonders aloud whether this is overreach. Carter plays the clip where Cole says, we'll make enough, and lets the silence after it do work that sentences can't. Closing arguments sound like versions of America. Counsel asks jurors to picture a world where officers hesitate. Carter asks them to picture a world where citizens walk. If liberty is always the thing that must wait, he says, then it is a very patient right. And then it is no right at all. The verdict arrives not with drama, but with the soft finality of a door latch. Guilty on paragraph 242. Guilty on false report. The sentence will be numbers later. Today, it is names, and the names are the ones on the Constitution everyone pretends to have read. Cole does not look at Maya. Maya watches the jury file out like a river returning to itself and breathes very slowly, because lungs are political only when someone takes the air.